These are the stories of America's crime-fighting nerve centers.
He's a suspicious person.
Surveillance video. Tracking systems.
Suspect was last seen leaving the rear entrance of the club.
Facial recognition. And gunshot detectors. It all comes in here.
The Real-Time Crime Center has helped to revolutionize how we investigate cases.
So police can solve crimes out there. Right now on Real-Time Crime. In New Orleans, Louisiana.
He was clearly looking for trouble. The man showed that he was armed.
A man is shot down in the historic French Quarter.
Real-time camera, see if they got any footage of this guy leaving, which way he went.
Whoever that person was, they never get to hug their parents again.
It was easy for this person to kill, and he was still on the loose in one of our most populated areas of the city.
And in Jonesboro, Arkansas, a welfare check leads investigators to a gruesome scene.
What does that smell?
Death smells like death. We had 24/7 coverage of that house.
We could see him coming and going like nothing was wrong. That leads us to believe that he's getting ready to flee the state.
The city of New Orleans is one of the oldest cities in this country, and the French Quarter was the first area that was built. Whether it's festival season, carnival season, or a Saints game, it's always bustling. All of this makes the French Quarter a particularly difficult area to police. And so the crime rates grow.
To combat this rise in crime, New Orleans law enforcement teams up with Project NOLA, a nonprofit organization that operates the largest network of crime cameras in the country.
We help provide crime cameras to the community. So when something bad happens, you're able to pull up all the cameras at once. You get that real-time information to law enforcement. It was a regular night in the French Quarter. The Saints game. We had finished. Our cameras are capturing people having a good time. Bar hopping, walking down the street, enjoying the nightlife.
The Project NOLA team spots something.
We observed two males being confrontational. So we're watching these guys. We saw the perpetrator walk down the street. And he just casually strutted off. The victim is down on the ground. There's just so much blood loss. It was a very tragic scene to watch play out.
In the 8th District, aggravated battery by shooting of Dundee. I can't find subject is supposed to be a black man with dreads, wearing a ball cap.
D29 heading out with
10-4.
Project NOLA immediately tells the New Orleans Police Department about the shooting.
Patrolmen in the area are going to be the first to arrive.
We heard one. I'm sorry. We heard one
shot.
He's gone. Step back. Step back. Step back. Step back. Step back. Step back.
119 headquarters. It's going to be about a three-legged dog. We're going to be in contact.
This was in the French Quarter. And you're talking about a highly trafficked tourist area.
Gunshot wound, looks like possibly to the face. Step. I need everybody off the scene real quick. Need some additional units cordoned off the scene over here.
Of course, situations like that, you've got to tape off that scene to protect it.
Got to open your script when you're ready for it. Go ahead. Black veil, shoulderless dress, black hoodie, black pants.
The police response was your typical police response when you've got a shooting. They canvass the scene for potential witnesses.
So start from the beginning and tell me what you saw and what happened.
We all inside, tested.
Want to go to fire, you didn't
Music
have
is
one.
playing. We all heard the shot.
How many shots?
One.
One witness says she's spoken with the suspect.
He was in the black hoodie, the black guy with the dark dreads. They were about shoulder length.
She did not know the perpetrator's name, but she was able to provide context, a conversation that was had and what things he said.
I decide that I want to go outside to smoke a cigarette, and a man approaches me. He doesn't look quite coherent. He is explaining how he has all these drugs and protection. I knew he was insinuating that he had a gun. And then I see a woman walk up. He started to talk to her, and I could tell she did not want to be bothered. I spoke up, and I told him, hey, look, dude, she does not want to talk to you. Another guy walks up, and he says, hey, what's going on? I threw my cigarette, and I said, I'm going to go inside now. And I proceeded to walk into the Three-Legged Dog pub.
Tell the ambulance to come in. Contact Rampart.
Whoever that person was, their life just ended. They had a mom and dad, and they never get to hug their parents again.
I know we got cameras over here on the south.
Coming right now.
All we knew is that it was easy for this person to kill and that he was still on the loose in one of our most populated areas of the city. This was absolutely a dangerous situation because he had left the scene with the gun still on his person. And so we needed Project NOLA cameras and the real-time crime center to find this perpetrator as fast as they can.
After the homicide, we were looking for the perpetrator. We were actively looking for him around the French Quarter. We had a camera just down the block.
The camera angle provided not just the sidewalk, but it provided an intersection. And you also can see the direction this perpetrator is leaving this area in.
A lot of times we're able to actually track perpetrators from camera to camera to camera, all the way back to their home. Unfortunately, this homicide happened at the very edge of the French Quarter. And we didn't have any cameras immediately outside the French Quarter. So as far as like our being able to track the perpetrator in this homicide, we weren't able to go very far. We know what happened and how it happened, but not why it happened. So we have the cameras to go ahead and very quickly go back in time. There was a gentleman. He saw the two women being harassed by the man, and he helped with a very unfortunate situation. He told the man something to the tune of, "You don't have to be like this. This isn't the way to treat women." The man very quickly showed the Good Samaritan that he was armed.
You see the second male walking away from the bar, walking away from the first male. And you actually see the first male motion for the second male to come back.
He was clearly looking for trouble. He was trying to escalate the situation, and he was successful.
Had the individual not called him back, he'd still be alive.
It was absolutely senseless and a very tragic scene. Our camera showed that the guy had his hand on his gun and was drawing it up.
You don't see this perpetrator waiting for the police to come to tell his side of the story. You don't see him go inside and ask for them to call 911. You see bravado, ego, and then you see him casually walk out of the camera's view. And that tells us a lot about this perpetrator.
The man is identified as 41-year-old Russell Riku Jr. of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Russell Riku. And he was with friends that night for the Saints game, and they had become separated in those moments. And although Russell died in the streets of New Orleans alone that night, he was not alone in this world. He came from a huge, very loving family. And a number of people still feel his senseless loss.
I was in shock. Like, I couldn't cry. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't want to believe it or anything like that. And he could not stand confrontation like that. You know, he did not like arguments and fighting. That is not something he liked at all. But he would stand up for people. Like, if he saw somebody in distress like that, he would go in and help them like that. That is the type of person he was. Absolutely.
The suspect has walked out of Project Nola's camera range, so analysts must work with what they already have.
Because this footage was quite clear, you're able to see his race, his complexion, his hairstyle, what his height might have been, what his weight might have been, what clothing he was wearing that night. So there was a lot of meat on the bone in terms of investigative material that could be used to help solve this crime. And the detectives start getting that information out into the public so the public can be on the lookout to help find this man who was armed and dangerous.
New Orleans police are asking if you've seen this man. He's a person of interest related to the shooting. in the French Quarter this week.
There are a number of tips from the community. Every one of those tips that comes in has to be vetted, has to be investigated by law enforcement. Because sometimes the tips, although well-intentioned, are not relevant to the case at hand. Luckily, one of those tips was fruitful.
That tip gives police a name, James Patton. Analysts compare images from the surveillance video to Patton's social media photos. Patton looks a lot like Russell Riku's killer.
They were able to show the social media image to an eyewitness that was on the scene.
Get a call from the police department. They have a lineup, a series of photos, and they want me to come in. I chose a suspect, and there was nothing more I could do. It was over.
That eyewitness was able to confirm that James Patton was that person on that video. Having an identification, it's a huge step in investigation, but there's another large, giant moon step, which is actually finding and detaining an individual once you know they're the person you're looking for.
The informant also claims that James Patton is homeless.
You know, the city of New Orleans is an urban setting in which there are a number of places to go and hide and blend in. Just getting a name and just getting a date of birth or a last known address, even if it means that person was living under a bridge. Even people that are transient and homeless tend to have a certain area that they've carved out for themselves as their place.
But Patton remains at large. Until finally there's a breakthrough. And police track him down.
Come your hands! Get down on your knees! Put your hands on top of your head!
"26 days after the shooting, James Patton is finally in custody.
Can you see that for me? I know it's area. You have been arrested or detained in connection with the investigation or commission of a crime, more specifically homicide. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. Do you understand your rights as I read them to you? You understand your rights?
Patton refuses to talk to police. He's charged with second-degree murder.
After probably a little over a weeks-long trial, the jury came back with manslaughter for the killing of Russell Riku, and the judge came back with a maximum sentence.
Patton is sentenced to 40 years.
There was very little remorse that came from the defendant. The same callous disregard for human life that you saw in that video permeated all the days of the trial, including the sentencing hearing.
Knowing that the person was put in jail, it was closure. It was an end of a tragedy that I had experienced. And it was a relief by proxy for Russell's family. They received some semblance of justice.
I don't think it's something that I will ever get over. I just reflect on the memories, the good times that we had. I think he should be remembered as a kind, loving, caring person who would have done anything for anybody, a stranger, anybody.
This DA's office, working with its partners like Project NOLA, is going to be creative in finding ways to hold people accountable, using camera technology. and Brian Lagarde stood with me in the French Quarter after the sentencing to encourage more people to invest in Project NOLA cameras so that we don't have to rely on witness testimony, which sometimes can be flawed. This footage is not flawed. It is real evidence that, if used correctly, can be a linchpin in proving cases beyond a reasonable doubt.
Jonesboro, Arkansas is a growing city with a small-town feel. But as the population rises, so does the crime rate.
Jonesboro Police Department is the 5th largest department in the state of Arkansas. We cover 81 square miles of our jurisdiction.
Jonesboro police have a high-tech crime-fighting solution.
The Jonesboro Police Department Real-Time Crime Center is a centrally located hub for all the camera feeds across the whole city, over 600 cameras at our fingertips. We are monitoring the radio and the dispatch logs in real time, so we can give very up-to-the-second information.
The quicker you get information at a crime scene, the quicker you can get the suspect. So the Real-Time Crime Center, it is invaluable.
Lori Alp heads to Jonesboro Police Headquarters. She's worried about her friend, 50-year-old Alyssa Reynolds.
Your friend, hadn't heard from your friend. Alyssa, is that right? Yeah. When was the last time you talked to her?
Last Friday. We all three met up.
When was the last time you talked to her on the phone?
Heard her voice?
Yes.
I haven't.
Lori said that they talk all the time on the phone. They see each other quite often, so this is very unlike her character to go this long without seeing her.
All week, we've been suspicious. Starting Monday, things just haven't seemed right.
I met Alyssa in 2012. She had so many close friends. Lori knew Alyssa like the back of her hand, and if Lori's got concerns, we're in trouble. I called my ex-husband, who works for the Jonesboro Police Department, Lane Holmes. I said, "You've got to do something. We've got to get in that house."
I'd known Alyssa a long time. Alyssa was at Whitney and I's wedding. It was definitely personal to try and get an answer, not just for Alyssa's friends and Whitney, but also for myself. On the way there, I called a partner of mine to come with me. Everything was locked, all the blinds were closed.
Is that her purse on the table?
Made the decision we were going to have the 4th Century.
All right, let's do this. Go ahead. You missed.
Police Department!
Go ahead.
Jonesboro Police! Police Department!
What is that smell?
I got a really strong odor. There was only one thing that it could be.
Police Department, if you're in here, answer up, please!
Death smells like death.
You already got it? Okay.
Police Department! Police Department!
It was pretty obvious that the smell of decomposition was coming from the living room.
Is it? All right, dogs up.
Hey.
There was a big pile of blankets piled up on the chase, which was completely out of place. There was a pool of blood on the floor and a towel that was soaked in blood. Yeah, that gave me a pretty sinking feeling.
I'm just looking to make sure.
My partner began to peel the blankets back. When he pulled the last blanket back, I could tell that it was Alyssa. was awful.
And that's it.
Yes. It was fairly clear that she had been dead for some days. Probably the worst part in that moment was I knew that I was going to have to call Whitney and tell her.
I think I was in such a state of shock when that phone call happened. Like, my brain just blacked out for a little while. It was completely unbelievable. Everybody liked Alyssa. She had so many friends. It's like, what could be going through somebody's head to make them want to do this?
Jonesboro Police Department's Real-Time Crime Center dispatches homicide detectives and crime scene units.
Yeah. Arrived on scene, made contact with multiple officers.
The door that was forced open. Patrol?
Yes. Alyssa was laying on a chase lounge on her back. You could see a lot of stab marks. It was a very violent attack. She had defensive wounds on her hands. She fought. There was no forced entry into the residence, so it suggested to us she knew who killed her. We located Alyssa's wallet in the kitchen counter. Appeared her debit and credit cards were missing.
Keys looks just like house keys only.
We've determined that her vehicle's not on scene.
Drive to 10th Street.
We don't have the key fob.
Clear.
We believe the suspect has fled the scene.
The Real-Time Crime Center confirms that Alyssa drove a white Range Rover.
Somebody had taken this car, and it was definitely not Alyssa. We knew that we needed to be looking for that vehicle.
The Real-Time Crime Center very quickly issued a BOLO to all local agencies about Alyssa's white Range Rover. We immediately began pulling up cameras in the area that we could search to look for the vehicle.
Second bedroom. Bunch of men's clothing. Looks like it's piled up on the bed.
It appeared that somebody else had been living at the house, but we didn't know who. There was paperwork on the kitchen table with the address of the residence.
Yeah. Looks like paperwork belongs to Sean Cone.
Officers on scene contacted the Real-Time Crime Center with a name, Sean Cone. So we ran his name through a few databases that could give us criminal history reports, vehicles that he's been driving, any kind of historical information that we could find. Our searches for Sean Cone turned up a few results. He was under investigation for fraud. He had previous DUIs. Even though Cone's background check did not show that he was necessarily violent, he is missing at this point, so we need to locate him and question him. Detectives made contact with several of Alyssa's friends and family.
Sean and Alyssa had been together on and off about a year and a half. There were difficulties in their relationship, some ups and downs.
Alyssa and Cone had broken up recently.
It was my understanding that Sean wasn't living there at all.
We need to speak to Sean Cone. Where is he? Can we call him on the phone? Does anybody have a phone number for him? We needed to find him, for sure.
Jonesboro Police Department. How you doing? So, man, come on.
We're canvassing the area, trying to figure out what's going on.
Why can't you tell me about Pete, who lives next door to you? We
we hadn't seen Alyssa in a while. Usually, I work out in my yard all the time.
Okay.
Usually, Alyssa comes in the afternoon.
We speak with the neighbors, and they tell us that they hadn't seen her. Have you seen her cars coming and going?
I seen her car.
Okay. When was the last time you seen her
The
car?
last time I seen her car was I think it was Friday.
But when you asked who was driving, they couldn't tell you. They just knew it was her vehicle.
Did y'all get a chance to talk to? I forgot this girl name over here.
Yeah, I've talked to Devin.
You talked to
The site.
The
He's
site.
supposed to be shooting me some video.
Okay, well he's got it all because I watched him.
We learned a neighbor that's down the street has a camera. What's up, man? I'm Detective Arnold with Jonesboro Police Department. I understand y'all got some cameras. Mind if go ahead.
They're all on here.
One of the neighbors had a camera, a perfect view of the front of Alyssa's house.
Send me that top camera, everything you have since last Monday. Well, as far back as you go.
You do get a little excited when you hear something like that.
The Real-Time Crime Center immediately uploads the neighbors' footage onto their systems.
We were able to scan through the last several days that we knew that Alyssa had been missing to see what was going on at her house. From this camera angle, it's very obvious that Alyssa's white Range Rover is coming and going from the house several times a day.
Detectives pull up footage from a camera that overlooks Alyssa's driveway.
We attempt to zoom in, but we're not able to establish who is driving the vehicle at that time.
To determine who's driving Alyssa's vehicle, detectives first need to narrow down exactly when Alyssa was killed.
We knew that Alyssa had likely been dead for several days, so at this point we have to build our own timeline through security footage. We were able to contact Alyssa's workplace and obtain footage of the last time that she left work. This is on December 2nd, 6 days before her body was found. We could see her clocking out. She's got her things. She's heading to her car. Alyssa is wearing a pair of jeans and a pink hoodie. 6 days later, when we found her body, she's wearing a pink hoodie and a pair of jeans. So that tells us that the murder happened right after she left work that day.
That night was the end of her life. She wasn't seen again. She didn't talk to anybody else.
Detectives now know that Alyssa was killed on December 2nd. The Real-Time Crime Center analyzes neighborhood videos for more clues as to who was driving her vehicle in the days after her murder.
Alyssa's white Range Rover would almost always park inside the garage, so it was hard to know who was in the vehicle.
But we were able to see a male subject that was coming in and out of the house. He's going about like nothing's ever happened. And that's the way it looks the entire time we're watching the video. We were able to determine the male subject was Alyssa's boyfriend, Sean Combs.
This surveillance footage from the neighbors definitely was huge in that we could see him. We could see Sean coming and going from the house like nothing was wrong for 6 days. It became very obvious to us at this time that Sean had been living in the house with Alyssa's dead body. At this point, we strongly believe that Sean Cohn is the murderer. He is driving Alyssa's vehicle. Both are missing, so it's all hands on deck, manhunt to find him.
To help track Sean Cohn's movements, detectives investigate recent transactions on Alyssa's missing bank cards.
The credit card statements make it very clear that someone is using Alyssa's credit card even after her murder.
There were purchases at a local liquor store, purchases at a local restaurant, and purchases at a local Sprint dealership.
We pulled up the Sprint footage. It was December 6th, which is 4 days after the murder.
Good, how are you?
It became very apparent that it was Sean. He's even wearing the same blue pullover in almost all of the footage that we found him in throughout the week. The workers at Sprint made it very clear that they could smell an odor coming from him.
He uses Alyssa's debit card to help pay for the phone and an iPad.
I'm at a place in the U.S.
He's just as nonchalant, no cares in the world.
He tells them that he's planning a trip, he's going to go out of town.
Hope you have a good night. I'm coming to Key West sometime.
That kind of leads us to believe that he's getting ready to flee the state, so we need to find him as quickly as possible.
The next morning, December 9th, a lady says she has information.
You were former ex-girlfriend of Sean Cohn.
She tells me that Sean had contacted her.
He told me he was leaving. We're talking about him going to Key West. He told me he was planning on leaving the country.
She tells me Sean's at the airport in Miami.
At the time that the tip came out, Sean was on an airplane.
We were following the exact plane that Sean's on. And that short flight seemed like it took forever to land. Monroe County Sheriff's Department had deputies at the airport. They had all the information, they had this picture, they had the warrant. They sent us a picture of him standing in front of the plane with two deputies, and he's in handcuffs. Once Sean was arrested, myself and another detective actually flew down to retrieve his belongings and bring them back to Arkansas. We were able to search his backpack, and in that backpack, besides cash, was a list of countries with non-extraditionary treaties with the U.S. And Cuba was handwritten and circled. He was planning on going to Cuba from Key West. I attempted to interview him on December 26th.
Well, I'm not answering questions without my attorney. Okay. So.
Sean invoked his right to have a lawyer, and so the interview was done. We didn't get anything out of him.
Sean Cohn is charged with first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and theft of property. He goes to trial in September of 2021.
During the trial, Sean said he came home, found Alyssa dead, panicked, and didn't know what to do because he was on parole and didn't want to be blamed for the homicide. He claimed that he owed money to some gang, and then they broke in and killed Alyssa. However, the security footage in our investigation shows that's 100% false. Because we had 24/7 coverage of that house, there was no one else. There was no forced entry. He was the only one that went inside that house. He was the only one that exited that house.
Sean Cohn was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for murder, with an additional 32 years for abuse of a corpse and theft. The Real-Time Crime Center was able to pull together footage from several different avenues across the city into one central hub. We all worked extremely hard to locate Cone, to set up this timeline to show what happened across those 6 days.
It doesn't bring Alyssa back, but he's not going to harm anybody else.
I think Alyssa would probably want to be remembered as a great friend. I'm really sad that Whitney and her friends don't have their friend anymore. It's just tragic.
The best way I can describe Alyssa is when you're outside and it's just, the sun's out and she's just that warmth.
Thank you, Alyssa, for a great sunshiny day.
For her birthday in 2020, we dedicated a corner to her at the Elks Lodge. That was our hangout spot for many years. It's called Alyssa's Corner. As a lodge, we raise money for domestic violence. We give back in our community and help people that don't think they have a voice. We want to keep Alyssa's memory alive.
Next time on Real-Time Crime. In Atlanta, Georgia, cameras capture a brutal attack.
Was this a drug deal gone bad? Was this an assassination?
And in Fort Worth, Texas, police are on the hunt for a pair of armed robbers.
Everything that we're doing is focused on finding these people.
Hands up!